Welcome to the follow-up session on universal human values. And we have our resource person, Arjun Asthanaji, with us. And he is going to take us further into the journey of knowing the proposals and understanding the proposals. So as I can see, the activities of self are going on. So let's go ahead with the session, because if Dr. Nagaraj, if you would like to ask something, it will be nice. And if you'd like to share something, it will be even more nice. Dr. Nagaraj, are we able to reach you?
The doctor have unmuted the mic, but we are not able to hear.
We are not able to reach.
Yes.
So probably
Some technical issue perhaps.
Maybe some technical issue.
Priya ma'am is also with us.
Priya ji is also with us. Namaste, Priya ji.
Namaste, ma'am.
Nice. Welcome to the session.
Well, namaste. How are your children, ma'am?
They are fine, recovering better now.
Okay.
Thank you.
They have become negative, no?
One of them has. The other one, maybe the test is faulty or so. I don't know.
Okay.
Welcome, Ravindra Raut sir.
Namaste, madam.
Namaste.
I have taken the second dose today. So,
oh, wonderful.
Yes. So, from today, so morning I have taken, and I feel drowsy, like I feel to sleep.
Okay. Yes. It does feel a bit sleepy and a bit tiring once we take a dose.
I also feel that, so I was
yes.
Actually, ma'am, now we are at home, no? So more work is there.
Very right.
Since when we go to the college, we are planning all the things. So it is a planned one. Now it is unexpectedly many works come since we are at home.
Yes. Very
Madam,
right.
you are from Delhi, na?
Are you asking Priya ma'am?
No, Manisha madam,
okay. I'm from Lucknow, sir. I'm from Lucknow.
Okay. Namaste. I'm from Odisha, actually.
Yes. Nice, Arjun. So I think we'll begin our session. Will that be fine? Ravin, sir, will you like to share something?
Oh, no.
That's okay. Fine. So, sirs, with the second dose of vaccine today, that's another good news. And we'll ask Arjun to begin the session. Arjun, welcome to the follow-up session, please.
Welcome. Namaste to everyone. And today we'll continue the discussion on what is happening inside the self in terms of the imagination. So these three activities we can see clearly that are going on inside each one of us as desire, thought, and expectation. So last time we were discussing about this, we had said that you can make a list of your desires and try to see from which source they're coming, whether they're motivated by preconditioning or sensation or by natural acceptance. So if you've made that list, then you might be having a clearer picture on what is happening inside the imagination. So if anyone wants to share about that, like if they've made a list about the desires, then even if the list is personal to you, if you don't want to share, it's okay, but you can just share your observation about what percentage of your desires are coming from natural acceptance, what percentage are coming from preconditioning, and what amount are coming from sensation. So that would be interesting to know. If anyone wants to share that, if they've done that exercise of making the list of desires and then classifying.
Arjun, I'm Priya.
Yeah, namaste, ma'am.
Yeah, actually, I think I've told before also my desire, I have to do my PhD. So I've just started. Actually, if you ask me before 3-4 years, I didn't have this desire. But now since I'm sticking on to teaching field, this has become a necessity. So that is one desire. So when I checked it, it is not because everybody, it's not a preconditioning, because it's not like everyone is doing. It is actually from the natural acceptance itself, I feel. So there's no tension. But the thing is, I have to manage with my job. So that is the only thing worrying me. And the starting trouble is also there. So I discuss in the morning session, and Ganesh ji has given me suggestions how you can motivate yourself to start doing it. And the next desire, I feel I have to improve my relationship. Actually, I have a good relation. I myself feel I'm very comfortable in the office, since I have a good relationship with my colleagues and with my seniors. But but at home, I feel I'm not up to the mark. So with family members, I need to improve my relationship. So that is one of, I don't know whether it's a desire. Of course, I feel it's a desire. So that also, I think it's right understanding, because we have to have a good relationship in the family first, then only we can go ahead. So I'm working on it. I'm attending the morning session. It has I think a lot of change is happening to me. So whenever the other person comes in opposition or starts arguing, I just feel in my mind whether I am in relationship with that person or opposition. So suddenly it is relationship. Then I become very quiet, and I talk in a very, I don't react. So that is happening. I'm observing for past 1 week. So that's my desires. Those are the two desires. I think other physical facility, I think I feel the what do you mean? What when you feel, no, you have more than that. What is that word? I forgot. You feel physical facility is enough, no?
Yeah.
That is there in my mind. That was been from a long time. It is there.
That means abundance.
Abundance, yeah, physical facility. I don't know. It is if somebody looks at it, it's not abundance, but in my mind, it is in abundance. So that's it. And I like to share whichever extra I have, I'm sharing. Now what I'm doing in the lockdown period, I'm calling many of my actually in my house, lot of maids. They were there. Actually, my in-laws were a little old, so we knew a lot of maids. They had come to in our house. So they keep changing because of many circumstances. We have to change. So I was calling each one of them whether they are having food to eat and all those things. So some of them I came to know they are in a very bad situation. So I send money to them. So I feel since we need to help each other. So one of my daughter's marriage is tomorrow. She had worked 2 years before in my home. So for her also, I helped her by sending some amount of money. So those are the things I need. I'm exploring myself. So those things I could do it now. Before it was there in my mind, but I could not do it properly.
Okay, very nice. And would anyone else like to share particularly about this, how your desires are, like what percentage of them are coming from natural acceptance, what percentage are coming from sensation, and what percentage are coming from preconditioning? Like you can just share within 10 seconds maybe.
Can I share?
Yeah.
Can I share?
Sure.
Hello.
Sure. Please go ahead. You can share.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
All right. This preconditioning thing vanished from my mind the moment I started attending the morning sessions. Now I look at everything with a very new perspective, and with the perspective of resolving the matter and not getting involved in why this happened and how dare they do it and things like that. So, for example, there are some street dogs in our society. We keep feeding them, and one of the bitch has given some babies, and initially I am not very happy with dogs, so I always keep away from them. And initially I would tell them, why are we all feeding these animals? They'll continue to stay here and they'll produce, and they will have we'll have a lot of mess around. But with the right understanding and everything, now I just this time I make sure that food is given to them daily, and I tell my daughter, go feed them. Though I'm very scared of dogs, but I tell her, go feed them. And I've accepted that yes, they are living here and feeding them will be our responsibility. And since she's produced now, so she needs more nutrition, so we try to give them some bones and something. So my perspective towards the dogs have changed, because earlier it was like I was scared and I would just ensure that nobody entertains them, so nobody feeds them, so that they go away from here. Now I've accepted that they are a part of our environment and they have to be here and they have to be looked after.
Okay.
That's my sharing.
Okay. So I think maybe no one has done the exercise yet about like making the list and trying to go deeper into looking at the desires in detail. So it's okay, you can do it next time also. And what you can do is you can first list down all the desires which you have, and then try to like truthfully analyze and see which desire is coming from which source, and that will give a lot of clarity about how you can improve the state of the imagination and make it more such that you'll feel happier once you're able to resolve some of the things going on inside. So if you see inside what's happening, we have desires, and with those desires, because of those desires, to fulfill those desires, there are so many thoughts also running, and then those thoughts lead to expectation. So in terms of the activity of what is happening, when you get a desire, then you start imagining things in terms of imaging, like visual images or certain scenarios which you visualize, certain situations which you visualize. And then based on that, then you have thoughts which you use the activity of analyzing and comparing to figure out the next thing in line, which is then selecting and tasting. So this is all under imagination. This is all whatever is happening inside the imagination. We're just breaking up into these parts, and overall we call this imagination, content of imagination. So we were discussing that they can come from these three sources that we've discussed last time. So now in this session we'll talk more about what exactly is like the crux of what happens when you get desires coming from preconditioning, what happens when you get them from sensation, and what happens when you get them from natural acceptance. So basically preconditioning is about assuming things without knowing. So that might be that you have a certain belief or a certain kind of idea which has come from somewhere, which you have adopted inside yourself, and you believe that to be true without exploring it directly, without seeing it directly. So there are so many subtle assumptions. If we really look, then we have a lot of subtle assumptions based on which we take a lot of decisions within our life, which we may not even realize. So we keep doing this all the time because there are always some different preconditionings which are triggering our decisions. So this whole thing of preconditioning is about assuming without knowing, which means that you're accepting something to be true, but you don't know it to be true. But since the belief is so strong, you feel that you know it. So that's what happens with preconditioning. So the thing why, I mean, the reason why it's a little bit tricky is because it looks like you know, but actually you're assuming. So in your mind, you feel that you know, but in the reality, it's a assumption which is very strong inside you, which makes you feel like you know. So that is different from knowing. So if a desire is coming from there, then many times you might still feel that the desire is coming from somewhere else. But then, like if you analyze deeply, then you'll come to know where it's really coming from. And then the second source of sensation is to do with the five senses. So when you indulge with the five, I mean, like since we are exploring the whole world in terms of these five senses predominantly, therefore we have a tendency to go for this sensation, to try to get happiness from sensation, because we're able to see the impact of it immediately. Like when we have a favorable sensation of sound, we heard a good piece of music, then if it uplifts the mood, then we feel that we became happy because of that sensation. Same with touch, that if we got some favorable touch, like a hug or something, then it makes us feel that we are more in relationship. But like what is actually happening is just um, that we are trying to convert that into happiness. We're trying to assume that that is happiness, but in reality, the happiness which comes from sensation is very temporary, and that is more of like excitement. That's not really happiness. But even then, we are going behind that because that is what we have seen already before. We have experienced it multiple times in multiple different ways, and we are very familiar with these five senses. We are very familiar with the sound, touch, form, taste, smell, because we keep doing that 24/7, and then we are able to analyze that much more easily than what we are able to analyze what's happening in the cell. So since the sensations are very much linked with the body, and we have that deep rooted assumption that the human being is the body, because of that we are able to like perceive this much more easily, and therefore we get drawn towards it also much more easily. So this is sensation. And then natural acceptance is when you have something which is coming from knowing, which is very deep, and it is something which is universal, as in it is the same for every person. It doesn't depend on the kind of person or his attitude or mood or thinking process or opinions. It doesn't depend on any of these things, because it is something which is innate. It's like something which is built in inside each one of us. So that part of us is constant. It's always there, but because we are predominantly looking outside for the happiness, because of that we are not able to see this, and this becomes like something which gets covered up, or something which gets suppressed by the other two. So it's like the natural acceptance is always there. It's there within each one of us, and it's universal, and that is always guiding in the right direction. But there is because that is what is on the surface. This one is more deep inside. So when we look at natural acceptance, it has to do with our purpose, and it has to do with harmony and happiness within ourselves, which is not coming from outside, but which is coming from within ourselves, which we can start realizing. So what we're saying when we are looking at desires and seeing where they're coming from is that we're trying to figure out which desire is coming from which source, and then based on that make a decision whether we want to continue that desire or we don't want to continue. And if we look, many of our desires that we have are giving us unhappiness, but we still continue to keep them because we are in the assumption that they will give us happiness. So if you look at that, you'll see that there are so many desires which are within us, which are coming from preconditioning or sensation, which are driving us to do certain things. But eventually, if you look at it, then it is giving us unhappiness. So when we have these kind of conflicts where we want something else, but we are desiring something else, then you have a clear conflict, and that leads to unhappiness. So if you look at your whole imagination, if it is random and disorganized, then as in terms of doing tasks also, there will be less productivity, and in terms of the clarity also, there will be less clarity or a state of confusion. So if you look at your imagination, you can just see whether it is driven by mostly natural acceptance or a combination of all three, which are still mostly driven by preconditioning and sensation. And although it might look like a lot of things are from natural acceptance, once you look deeper, then you'll see that all the reasons for the unhappiness are coming from these two, the preconditioning and sensation. So if all your desires are coming from natural acceptance, then you'll never be unhappy. That would be a state which you would be in.
Arjun, I have a question. One of my friends' son, no, he want to go abroad and study higher studies. So that desire is from, is it a preconditioning or is it a naturally acceptable one? Because she does actually, it is very expensive for her, for the parent. So the parent doesn't want, but they doesn't want to. Since the son is selling, they doesn't want to disappoint him also.
Okay.
So how will we can what type of desire he can itself fully understand?
Yeah. So in that case also, like we can ask him why he wants to go abroad. He or she, I don't know, whatever it was. So you can ask him why he wants to go abroad, and then try to go to the root of that decision, that why he wants to take that decision. That is it because he wants to like feel more respected in the society, or feel that he has achieved more, feel that he's more successful having a degree from a foreign university or something like that. That could be a major driving reason, because like even going to a college, if you see nowadays, is not as necessary as before, because like there's so much information. In terms of information, you can get so much, you can get the same level of information even online nowadays.
Yeah.
So why even go to college if the information is already there everywhere else? So like if we really look at it, then we see that we are doing many things because of preconditioning also, right? Because we have an assumption that, you know, it is the norm to go to college. Everybody goes to college. If you don't go to college, you don't get a degree, and you may not get work. All these assumptions are there. But in the reality, it's very easy for, I mean, it's not very easy, but it's equally possible for somebody to learn everything online and do a job also online, and do something else, something. So even some simple things like that, there are so many preconditionings involved before we take the decision. And with this thing of going abroad also, like we can ask him the reason why he wants to go, and then we come to know, and for everybody there'll be some other reason, but then it may link to the same things. Like it may link to the thing that it links to a feeling of success, or it links to a feeling of feeling superior to others because he has a foreign degree, whereas others have a Indian degree or something.
The Indian degree, okay.
Yeah, so it could be that feeling of superiority. It could be feeling of.
So those are all preconditions, no?
Those
If
are all
we are,
tendencies which are coming, and those tendencies are coming from very deep-rooted preconditionings, which
okay.
are which you may not be able to see immediately because they are like there are many layers of these preconditionings. So on the top surface, the top conditioning. But as you go deeper, then many of the layers of preconditioning you may not be able to see as preconditioning. So only when you explore deeply and truthfully, then you see all those layers are there.
Okay.
So those are the reason for most of the conflict happening inside, because the top layers which you have, which are like more superficial layers, those you can just remove easily, like within a couple of months, or you hear something, you practice something for a few months or something, and you can remove those.
Okay.
But the ones which are deeper, it takes more time because it is deeper.
But the example that you told, no, we have to go to college for a degree. That is a precondition. I'm just exploring. We thought it is we have to do it, no, because to get a job, we need a degree, no. So we have to go to
That is also preconditioning.
conditioning.
Yeah,
That's what
you need to go to college to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many college dropouts who also became like even millionaires also, right?
Yeah.
So that is also preconditioning, right? That you have to go to college to get a job.
Okay. Thank you.
There are so many things like this. If you explore, then you'll be more like you'll be able to see so many things. Within our behaviors also, there are so many kinds of preconditionings which make our behavior come out that way. And in terms of our thoughts also, there are so many thoughts which are coming inside us based on deeper rooted preconditionings. So if you're not aware of them, then it looks like thoughts are just coming, desires are just coming, and we don't have control on what is happening. But as we draw our awareness towards all the things which are happening inside, all the three things, this imaging, these three activities which we have here, imaging, analyzing, comparing, selecting, tasting. As we look at these activities, then we see what is really happening in our imagination. And then based on that, then we can analyze more clearly about where the things are coming from, where the desires are coming from, where the thoughts are. Thoughts and all will always follow the desires. But if we just pay attention to where the desires are coming from, then we know all three because they're all linked.
Okay.
And we can also say that once we know this, then we become more comfortable within just by knowing it.
Okay.
Because right now, just imagine the situation where there are so many preconditionings and we are acting based on them, but we don't know that we have them.
We have it.
Because we think that everything that we think is true. So if we think everything that we are thinking is true, then we'll not be able to explore the possibility of knowing, because we've assumed everything that we have gathered to be true.
Okay.
So that is the block, actually. That is what is blocking us from seeing the reality. So once we open that block, then we see things in a totally different way.
And I've seen many students who are passed out, they have a preconditioning that they have to get a government job, then only they will be successful and they can settle easily. So that is also there in many students.
True. So like this, like when you look at another person's preconditioning, I mean, like when you look at it from, like look at somebody else's behavior and, thoughts, and I mean, like since he's expressing it, so we're able to see it because he's expressing it.
Yeah.
But in our own case, we are not able to see it because we are not expressing it. We are keeping it in our thoughts and our desires and inside ourselves, right? So because of that, we tend to be able to see other people's things
But
based on what they're saying, based on
okay.
their expression.
But we are not able to analyze ourselves,
Yeah,
our desire.
we're
That's
not,
why you told to write the desires.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's why it's a very, very
Yeah.
beneficial exercise, because on the surface it might look like, if you're just thinking about it on the spot right here, then we might get 10 or 15 desires which we have right now. But
Okay.
that'll just be the topmost layer, which is not really going to get us that far in terms of like understanding. But if we really take time and explore this over a couple of days or some time, then we come to know more, a clearer picture of the desires that we have.
Okay. I think somebody's mic is on.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe yeah, okay.
Okay, Arjun.
Yeah. So if the imagination is random and disorganized, then it indicates a state of confusion. And in terms of work, also, we are less productive. Whereas when the imagination is um, very organized, as we've mentioned in the first half of this, then if things are all coming from natural acceptance, then we suddenly become very, very productive also, and our conflict of thought also disappears. So state one is the top part, is the ideal state which we all want to be in. And if we are in that state, then we are also in continuous happiness. Whereas if we are in the second state, then we will always keep shifting between being happy and sad, because whenever our desires are coming from natural acceptance and we are able to fulfill them, then we feel happy. When they're coming from preconditioning and sensation, if we are not able to fulfill, we are unhappy. If we are able to fulfill, then we are happy only for a few moments, and then again we switch back. So this is the difference between the two states. So we are all right now in this second state, and we want to move towards the first state. So making that list of desires will help us to analyze that and get closer to where we want to be. So this is what we were just discussing right now, that if we observe carefully, then we realize that we have accumulated a lot of different things inside, which we have just discussed, right? A lot of desires, lots of thoughts, lots of expectations. And we ourselves are not aware of it, but this is what is driving us. So like last time, how we were discussing that it is like a car is driving itself, there is no driver. That kind of scenario we are seeing, because there are so many desires, so many thoughts, all this thing is going on its own, and we are not really aware of it. So in that state, we don't know where we are going also. So on the other hand, where we want to be is in a state where we know our desires, we know our thoughts, we know our expectations, and we don't have any conflicts of desires. Like there's a large there's a very big possibility of, when we are here in this state of getting our desires from these three sources, then there's a large possibility of a lot of conflicts of desires. Like our natural acceptance says that we want something, but our preconditioning says that we want something else, and sensation says that we want something else. Like we'll take an example of food also, that suppose we are very hungry right now, and our natural acceptance is saying to eat healthy food. Preconditioning is saying to go to the restaurant which our friends have been to, because that's a very that makes it feel like we are more elite. And then the sensation is saying go to this restaurant because the taste of the food is excellent over there. So like this, if there are these three things going on, three different desires, then how do you choose? If your natural acceptance is on the top, where you're not suppressing it, where you're able to see it clearly and then act on that, then you'll go for that food which is nutritious. It may be tasty also, but then you're focusing on the nutrition. And then in the second case, you're going to the place because your friends might be going and it looks good to go there because it's a more posh place, or for some reason you want to go there. Or maybe you're choosing the food because other people say that this is a nice thing to eat, so I'm eating it. I don't know why, because some person has said that you must eat this food, so I'm eating it. So that's like through preconditioning you're making the choice. And then if it is sensation, then you're going for it because of the taste, largely because of the taste, and not being so focused on the nutrition or the health. So when we look at these three, then they're in harmony with each other, these three desires. So what we're saying is that there may be conflict of the desires also. So keeping in mind this fact that there may be this conflict, then when the time comes to take the decision, if you're aware of this, then you can take a more informed decision, and then you can probably end up with the right choice. And it is still a hard thing sometimes because that temptation may be there, but then once you start doing it, then it gives you a lot more satisfaction. It's like even about school or college also, when we're studying, then many times it happens that we feel like you know quitting it and watching a movie for some time, and it's okay if the exam is the next day. It's like we feel that we just take a break and have fun for some time and then get back to the study. And then if we are well prepared, it's still okay, it still works. But if we're not, then we watch the movie, 2 hours are gone, and then we feel that we don't have enough time to finish the syllabus. And then you know the next day when the exam happens, then we have a little bit of a regret. So all this is happening because we're having conflicting desires. One desire is that we want to study well and do well in the exam. That could be a desire. And another desire could be that um, instead of studying, like, I want to have a break and watch a movie, and then I'll get back to it and we'll see what happens. So, like this, when we have different desires which are conflicting, then later on we might have guilt or regret. So, to avoid that, making this choice. And at the time of making this choice, you can just ask yourself if what you're doing is what you really want to do. Is that naturally acceptable to you, or is it just something um, which is a temptation or a craving coming from preconditioning or sensation? And if you say that it's a preconditioning coming from, if you say that it's something which is coming from some kind of temptation or craving, then again you can ask yourself if that is going to give you happiness, or it's just going to give you a little bit of excitement for a few moments and then it'll lead to guilt or regret. So this answer is very clear, but most of the time we are doing this without really observing ourselves properly, without being aware of it. So if we are aware of it, then it is easier to take the right decision, and then you have no regret then. And then that gives you like a lot of happiness. Even if you take a small decision like that, it can give you a lot more happiness. So this is something which we can observe also. And when you do the exercise, then you can come to something like this, that for a lot of us, including me and including a lot of most of us, if we see, then our graph or our pie chart looks somewhat like this, where a lot of our desires are coming from either preconditioning or sensation, and very few are coming from natural acceptance. So when the desires are coming from these preconditioning and sensation, then we also have a tendency to be going after something, like feeling that when we get this, we'll be happier. When we get that, we'll be happier. When we get this next promotion, we'll be happier. Or when we, you know, when we watch that movie, we'll be happier. So all these are short-term things which give us that small excitement, and they don't really fulfill us. But then we still have that craving and that need, which we feel that, you know, we have that need within us, and that gives us a kind of a boost. Every time you get it, then you feel good for a few moments, and then again you crave for it, and that whole thing keeps going on loop. That doesn't end like that. So once we realize that we are in that loop, only then we see that, you know, that we have something higher which we can aim for, which is natural acceptance. So even like something like running after success, or running after popularity, or after physical facility, or any of these things which most of us want, if that is the whole focus, then we'll always keep feeling that we are one step away from that happiness. We're always one step away, but we are not there. Whereas if we see from the natural acceptance, if we are getting the desires from our natural acceptance, then the whole scenario of our imagination changes, and then we see things in a very different way. Then everything has its correct place, where we feel that, you know, this physical facility has its place, this success has its place, and, you know, all these things have its own place, but then they don't dominate over our whole system, and they are somewhat not as important as natural acceptance and desires coming from natural acceptance, which are relationship and right understanding. And when we see this, then we see that our behavior and work also changes based on where our desires are, because based on our desires, our thoughts will be there, and based on those thoughts, we'll have expectations, and based on all that stuff happening inside, we will do something outside also, right? Because after all that stuff has happened inside, we may choose to do something outside. So our behavior and our work will depend on what is happening inside. So the desires, the thoughts, expectations are driving the behavior and work outside also. So this is how we can go forward, where we have seen these three things: preconditioning, sensation, and natural acceptance. We've seen these three. So now the next step would be to try to have imagination guided by right understanding. More of your imagination, more of your desires coming motivated from natural acceptance. So that would be the path which, I mean, this is what we want to get to finally. So we want to transition from this state where a lot of desires are motivated by sensation or by preconditioning. We want to move from that state to this state where most of our desires are motivated by natural acceptance, and they're guided by the right understanding. So all our efforts right now are towards right understanding, so that we can be happier. We want to be happier eventually, right? So when we are in this kind of state, then we are in a state of harmony. So whenever this flow is happening like this, then we feel happy and in a state of harmony. And whenever it is not like this, we feel sometimes happy, sometimes sad, sometimes tension, sometimes stress. All these mixed things keep going on.
Arjun, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
I have felt, sometimes we don't have any desires. I used to feel whatever it comes, then we'll take a decision and do whatever the situation is. According to that, let the desires come. So is it okay? Because I have felt that sometimes I had reached once in a say like the desires, no, there's no desires. Whatever it is coming, it's coming good, or let it be like that. So is it okay?
It's not about okay or not okay, because I mean, like, you're saying that you're just going with the flow of whatever is coming to you, accepting it as it comes.
Yeah.
So if you're able to accept everything as it comes, then you will feel happier just because of accepting and not, having any friction between what is coming. So that way you'll be more comfortable, that is for sure. But in terms of desire, there'll still be a lot of desires which are underlying this thing. Like, you're accepting things as they come. That is actually very good if you're able to accept everything as it comes without any kind of conflict of thoughts or conflict of desires, because that way you'll anyway be happier, because you don't have that friction between these two. Your state in which you are and the state in which you want to be are the same.
Yeah, same.
If that is the same, then you're in a state of harmony.
Okay.
So all the things as they come, anyway we don't have any choice other than to either to accept or to change that situation or change something about it.
Okay.
So there are so many things which we want to change also in the society,
okay,
or in things like that. So that way you start having desires for those things then.
Okay. Which I can do myself for the others, huh?
Yeah. Because
Okay.
if you feel that for yourself, you don't have any other desires other than having things the way they are going, continuing that flow. That means you're comfortable with the situation which you are in, and you're comfortable with the way the things are going. So then you don't have anything more which you need.
Yeah.
Yourself. So then that is the starting point where you can start, having desires on spreading that harmony.
Okay.
Because when you have harmony within, then the natural feeling is that you want to spread it with others also.
Others, okay.
So there are so many problems in the society, right?
Yeah.
When we see what our role is in terms of how we can contribute to fixing those problems or improving some situations or doing something like that, then we can start looking at that. We can start looking at that only once we feel this way, right? Only once we feel that we don't have anything for ourselves to gain.
Okay.
So when you've reached that state, then it becomes easier to start doing these things. And then in terms of our activities also, we start putting in more time for these things and start contributing towards whatever we can do. Like, we find out what our role could be, analyze the different problems, we analyze our skills, and then figure out where we can do something.
Okay.
And then that becomes a desire, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Like if you have a desire to help students to understand something, that's a desire.
Desire.
So desire doesn't mean it will be a bad desire.
Okay.
Like, just to live with continuous happiness and prosperity is a desire.
It's a desire. Okay.
If you don't have this desire, then our life, we would not.
We will not be happy. Okay. We will not work out for the things to be happy.
Not only that, we would have committed suicide by this time if that was
okay.
Because if we don't want to live itself, the desire to live with this continuous happiness and prosperity is our natural acceptance. So, that would be the route, that you start seeing what you could do, what things you could do, and then that starts becoming a desire.
Desire, okay. Thank you.
There's always be some or the other desire.
Desires, okay, fine.
And that's what we are saying, that the idea is not to have no desires, but to have desires which are guided by the right
understanding. Okay.
And that will make us happier also.
Happy, okay.
And because of those desires, we'll have certain thoughts. those thoughts will all be trying to fulfill that desire.
Yes, yes. Okay.
And those expectations which we have also are for meeting the thing of the desire, whatever we have in mind. Like suppose we have a desire to help, say, 1,000 people to understand one simple thing, or we are trying to help, we are trying to do something, right, in society. If we are trying to do anything, it could be depending on our skills and our effort, what we can do and all that. So suppose we have some desire like that, then based on that desire we'll start planning. So for planning we need to analyze, we need to have all kinds of thoughts coming. We do this kind of thing, right? Analyzing and comparing. Comparing means not comparing with others or something, but you have a tendency to analyze things, and when you're analyzing, then you automatically also compare. So then after that, based on all those analysis, I mean, compare as in, like, see, you have certain amount of time, you have certain amount of resources, you have certain ideas on what you want to do. All this is part of your analyzing and comparing. And then next is selecting and tasting, which means tasting doesn't mean that it has to be food, but it means that we are selecting what the outcome
Of the desire.
yeah, what kind of outcome we want to have. But then we're selecting all the detailing of it also, how to do this, how to do that, selecting like one method out of the multiple methods.
Okay.
And then we are tasting means we are trying something, we are seeing how it is, we have a taste towards things also, and plus we are trying to explore things also. So that combination is going on. So all this is happening in every desire. Every desire is getting some thoughts based on that desire, and then expectations are there, and these activities are always going on 24/7. So the only difference between the desires coming from, I mean, like, the only thing which we are saying is that if the desires are coming from the natural acceptance to right understanding, then those are, we can classify them as the right desires.
Yes.
And those are the desires which will give us happiness.
Okay.
When they are fulfilled, or even when they are not fulfilled, when we have the right understanding about fulfillment of the desire also, then we will see that, if it is not fulfilled, will it give us unhappiness or will it still give us happiness?
Okay. So I think we should give this exercise to the students also, no? Write all the desires and then tell them to analyze whether it is preconditioning, sensation, or right understanding.
Where
So then
it is motivated by, what it is motivated by.
Okay. So it will save there. Actually, otherwise that thoughts will be in the mind and they'll waste a lot of time, and they make, for example, I told the example, some students, they want to get a government job. So if they don't get it, no, so they will be very much frustrated in the end, like. So it is, so for what we need to tell them, those students, it's okay to, but if they don't get it, they should not, they should try for something else, no? Like that.
Yeah, that also. And then, like, once they see the bigger picture, right, then all these things which look like big decisions in life will become small decisions.
Okay. So if they go through this course itself,
right now, like, physical facility is on the top. In our general thing which we have, general assumption. So because that physical facility is at the top, then if we don't have a job or we don't get the job that we want, then we feel very insecure.
Okay.
Because we feel that we need to earn this much money and we need to have the best paying job, and that's why the student might want to go to the US also, right? Because
they want to go to US
because the pay might be more. And the assumption is that physical facility, if you have more, then it is better. Even in college, even when I was in college, in the final year of college, this discussion used to keep happening about what is the package of the company. The first discussion point was only about how much the company is paying. Even before seeing what work they ask the person to do. So if that is so much of a priority, then naturally there'll be a tendency to get depressed if you don't get that.
Get it.
But if you see things in this perspective, where physical facility is just needed for sustenance,
Sustenance.
it's like maintenance. For maintaining a car, you need some certain things, right? Like you need petrol and all that. But then your I mean, if your focus becomes just the maintenance of the car, then it's like it doesn't fulfill us, first of all, and second is that we are always, how I was saying, we are always one step away from that happiness, and we are not able to grab it because we are always like in that misconception that when we have more physical facility we'll be okay, but we don't know how much is more, what is more, how much we need. None of this is clear. So if we just keep going like that, then obviously then we'll be stuck.
Okay.
So that is the thing with this. If anyone else wants to share anything, you can feel free to share. So if we see the purple over here, this is what I really want to be. So if this is what you are also, means if they are the same, what I really want to be and what I am, then that means there's no conflict between these two states, between what you really want to be and what you are, in terms of your whole system we are talking about, even your thoughts and desires and everything. So if you are like in a state where you are very comfortable in that state and that is the exact state where you want to be, then you will be happy, right? Because then there's no conflict. So that is possible only when you're in the top side. When you're in the bottom, I mean, like when you're looking only in terms of this. Sorry, I made a mistake over there. This one is about. This is just the process. You have these three things: desire, thought, expectation. That may be motivated by either natural acceptance, the purple, or that could be motivated by the outside sources, preconditioning or sensation. So when it is motivated by the purple, then you reach that state where what you really want to be is the same as what you are. And when it is motivated by the outside sources, then what you are is very different from what you really want to be. And then you're aspiring to be something else. And therefore, during that journey, you're always in a struggle, kind of, because you're always one step away from that happiness. So that is the difference between being in a state where all your imagination is guided by a natural acceptance versus all your imagination being guided by, not all, but your imagination largely guided by preconditioning or sensation. So if we see our intention and competence, our intention is to be in the purple, where um, all our desires are motivated by our natural acceptance and we have the completeness of right understanding. That would be where we want to be. That is our intention. That's where we want to be also, and that's what we want all the time. Whereas our competence, we have to analyze for each one of us. It may be different, but we are still in the state where we are analyzing and seeing where we are, what I am, and trying to relate it with what I really want to be, and try to get closer and closer to that, so that the gap vanishes at some point. So that is the journey which we are traveling on. That's what we are all trying to achieve, trying to reach that point where our whole our intention is to reach there, but we want to actually reach there also. So that is the thing with this. there's any other question or comment, then we can take
Yes,
it.
sir.
So basically, just keep this dialogue alive where you're able to see your intention, able to see your competence, and then you're trying to merge that gap between what you are and what you really want to be. And once that gap is once there's no gap between those two, then there is a state of harmony. When the gap is there, then it is a state of conflict which causes unhappiness. Yeah.
Where does seek for validation lie in thought design and expectation? Like
For
a
validation,
lot of young people seek validation. It's common among young, like they want to be better than their friends. They want to excel at a specific field or subject so that people will think good about them.
yeah,
Also, for internal validation too, like so that they're a better version of themselves, basically, like internal validation too.
yeah.
So where does it lie in thought desire, both external and internal validation?
Yeah, we'll take them separately. The internal one we'll see first. That internally there may be an assumption about um, what we want. Like, see, in terms of natural acceptance, we want to be similar to the other because we want to relate to the other, right? Like we want to have a feeling of warmth from one way. Like I want to relate to you rather than feel that I'm better than you. But because that feeling of relationship is not there, because of that, we seem like we're two different individuals. And if I do something in which I will look superior, then it gives me a certain sense of, feeling better than the other. And that is like due to the misconception that we have that we want to be better than the other. But actually, our natural acceptance is for relationship. So we don't want to be better than the other. We want to be complementary to each other. So are you getting the difference, like between this being complementary to each other and being superior, inferior kind of?
Yes, sir.
So that is one thing which will really change the whole perspective, because when we're saying better than the other, then it's all happening because we have some kind of preconditioning which says that if I do this, I'll feel that I'm better. And that's just giving me a feeling that I'm better, but that's not really making me anything different, right? Like when I start comparing myself with somebody who is considered inferior for some reason, I mean, like either in terms of their skill level or in terms of their wealth level, money level, or anything, when we compare with somebody who is less than us in that particular domain, then it gives us a sense that we are better than what we are. And if we compare ourselves with somebody who has more of that skill or more of that thing which we want, then it makes us feel depressed because it makes us feel that the other is better than us, right? So all this gets clarified when we have the right perspective about all this stuff. Like when we are talking about physical facility, then regardless of whether somebody has more than us or less than us, that will not affect our state. Or if we take an example of something else, like you're saying validation from another person outside, like a friend or something, then if we are sure about our thoughts, our desires, our whole system, what our natural acceptance is, and what really gives us happiness, then what other people may have to say for us will not really affect us, because all our things are coming from natural acceptance and we're very sure of what we're doing. We're very sure of our desires, very sure of our thoughts, and we don't get drifted by, like we don't start drifting because of what somebody else may say or somebody else may do. So that is how you can really tackle that kind of a problem. It's all about the perspective. It comes down to the same thing. So is it clear, or should we take some more examples? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, Arjun, we can hear you.
Okay.
Network issue. Yes.
It's raining a
Hello.
lot in Lucknow as well. So there is a lot of like power cut and network issue maybe.
Okay. So basically, this validation thing is how you're saying it's from these two things, internal and external. How you're saying the internal is also driven by preconditioning, which means that that is also kind of external, but it looks internal because at that moment nobody's telling you anything. But then it's an accumulation of all those preconditionings which we have gathered, and based on that, we feel that we need to perform a certain way, or look a certain way, or act a certain way. So that's also coming from outside, either preconditioning or sensation. And even the this one also, which is external also, which you can see directly when you're going out with friends or something. That is also the same thing, where um, we're not able to see the relationship and the complementarity, and therefore we're trying to look special in that group, and therefore we're trying to do certain things better than the other, perform certain skills better than the other, or take any parameter of looks, or of physical strength, or of wealth, or any of these parameters. We're just taking them as an excuse to try to look more special than the other. So eventually this doesn't work, because there'll always be people who are above us and below us. So when we look at people below in that skill level or that criteria, whatever we decide for, when we look at people below, then we feel superior. And when we look at people above, we feel inferior. So this will keep happening until we have our own reference point. So till we have our own reference point, we'll always keep drifting. So rather than having the reference set by someone else, you can set the reference yourself, so that you are much more clear about your own behavior, your own thoughts, and all that, and that will be stable. That will not be guided by, that will not be influenced by um, what is happening outside. That will be fixed. That will be based on your natural acceptance, and then you will be comfortable. You will be in a comfortable state because of that itself. Like, I'll give you one more example, that there are a lot of people who are say into alcohol or something, or into going out to eat every day. Suppose, simpler example, that suppose everybody is into going out every day to eat, and you want to relate to those people, you want to feel like part of that gang, so then you also go, but then you know that it's going to impact your health. So what you do in these kind of situations is that, like, you need to have that reference point set, where you figure out what the priorities are and then follow that. And in the process, if you're losing any friends, then those kind of friends are not worth having anyway, right? If you're not able to relate to them, if uh, if they're following a different routine, or a different set of uh, things which they want to do, certain set of activities or something. So if that is the basis, then if you lose people, lose the friendship of such kind of people, then anyway it doesn't really matter, because those are not the kind of friends that will stick anyway. So there are multiple reasons why it's not really worth um, trying to be in a group like that just for the sake of being there. And even when we're trying to look superior also, trying to look different from a group also, just to show that we are different and better, that also doesn't last for a long time, because again we find people who are at a higher skill level, or at a higher position or whatever. So we'll keep meeting more and more people, and then we'll realize that there's no end to all that. So even getting validation from someone else, there's always someone else. Even if you get validation from one person or 10 people who are in your close friend circle, then there'll always be someone else outside that who will still have some issue with that, right? So there'll always be this kind of conflict when our reference point is outside. So in a
Yes,
nutshell,
Arjun.
yeah, we'll just close the last
Yes,
point.
that's what I was feeling, that it's already 8:40.
Yeah.
So, dear friends, nice and interactive session. So we'll continue with the same coming Wednesday.
Yeah.
Till then, let's keep on exploring the proposals and looking into it deeper and deeper and trying to experientially validate the same. Thank you so much, Arjun, for being with us and taking up so many queries of all the friends who are present here as a follow-up in a follow-up session. Some of the students are also here. So nice to see the students taking interest in these proposals. So nice to have all of us present on Wednesday for the UHV follow-up session of the eSIP that took place in the month of November. Thank you, Arjun. So we'll close the session now and meet again on Wednesday. And do remember to log in on Friday for holistic health session at the same time, that is 7:30. So Parikshit Bhaiya,